Okay, great. Welcome, everybody. We're here today to honor one of the giants in the world of functional medicine, integrative cardiologist, Dr. Stephen Sinatra, who died on June 19th. I'm Dr. Ben Weitz, doctor of chiropractic and functional medicine practitioner, and the host of the Rational Wellness podcast, found on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, as well as on YouTube. I'm joined by Dr. Howard Elkin, integrative cardiologist at HeartWise in both Whittier and Santa Monica, California. And Dr. Elkin participated with Dr. Sinatra on a study on the benefits of grounding for heart health, and they published a paper pertaining to that. We are also joined by nutritionist and PhD, Dr. Johnny Bowden, who co-wrote the book, The Great Cholesterol Myth with Dr. Sinatra. We're also joined by Dr. Drew Sinatra, a naturopathic physician, and he's also the son of Dr. Sinatra, and they work together on quite a number of projects. Unfortunately, Dr. Mark Houston, who was an associate of Dr. Sinatra and a close friend, was unable to make it because of some last-minute scheduling problems. So while I did not know Dr. Sinatra personally and never had the honor to interview him, I certainly knew of him, listened to him speak, and read some of his books and articles. Dr. Stephen Sinatra was a conventionally trained cardiologist and at one time was the chief of cardiology at Manchester Memorial Hospital in Connecticut. He discovered natural healing and became one of the great innovative integrative cardiologists, integrating nutrition, mind-body medicine, and other alternative therapies. Dr. Sinatra was a great educator, lecturing frequently, and he wrote or contributed to over 20 books, some of which include The Coenzyme Q10 Phenomenon, L-Carnitine in the Heart, Lower Your Blood Pressure in 8 Weeks, Reverse Heart Disease Now, and The Great Cholesterol Myth. He also published over 45 peer-reviewed papers and wrote hundreds of blogs and other articles on various topics in natural approaches to cardiology. As a bioenergetic psychotherapist, Dr. Sinatra used mind-body medicine to help his patients to heal, including looking at how unexpressed negative emotions such as anger and sadness could contribute to hypertension and heart disease. Dr. Sinatra got us to think differently about cholesterol and its role in the atherosclerotic process. After the Lion Diet Heart Study was published in 1994, which showed that a Mediterranean-style diet could reduce cardiovascular disease by 76% in high-risk patients without significantly changing their total or LDL cholesterol. This spurred Dr. Sinatra to question the saturated fat intake leads to elevated LDL cholesterol, which leads to atherosclerosis hypothesis. He also became more skeptical of the benefits of taking statins to reduce the risk of a heart attack. He observed that some of his patients with high cholesterol had clean arteries, while some patients with low cholesterol died from heart attacks. In The Great Cholesterol Myth by Bowden and Sinatra, they write that there is not evidence that supports a direct relationship between saturated fat and heart disease. And cholesterol is a relatively minor player in heart disease and a poor predictor of heart attacks. And the primary cause of heart disease is inflammation. Dr. Sinatra also observed patients who took statins and complained of memory and other cognitive problems, depression, muscle pain, and low libido due to the depletion of coenzyme Q10. Dr. Sinatra was one of the first to recognize and promote the importance of CoQ10 for heart health, and he pioneered the use of specific nutritional supplements to help the heart to reverse heart failure, including using CoQ10, as I just mentioned, L-carnitine, magnesium, and D-ribose. Dr. Sinatra, as I mentioned, was unable to make it And Dr. Sinatra is a very prominent expert on an integrative approach to cardiovascular.
You mean Dr. Houston?
Dr. Houston. Dr. Houston, sorry. Dr. Houston was unable to make it, but he did give me a statement that I'd like to read now to get things started. Steve was a dear friend and one of the best physicians that I have known. We loved working together at meetings and on our 2 books that we edited. He was a pioneer in cardiology and was never afraid to tell the truth about heart disease. He has been proven correct in many of his early ideas that were not initially accepted by the traditional cardiology community. He was admired by everyone who knew him. He was a kind, compassionate, and caring as a man and as a doctor. He was loved by his patients, friends, family, and all his associates. He was a mentor to me, to Dr. Houston, and I learned enormous amounts of information from him. I will always remember our good times. I will miss him. I send my regards, love, and prayers to all of his family. Steve made a difference in the way we now practice cardiology and will be remembered as a master and one of the most influential of our time. And that's from Dr. Mark Houston. So I thought before we get into the science of some of Dr. Sinatra's innovations, I'd like to go around and ask each of you to mention something that you recall that Dr. Sinatra said or did that would tell us something about who he was as a person. Howard, would you like to go first?
I think, my first meeting with Sinatra was very memorable. So I was